What we found was not surprising in the sense that many students choose the accounting profession because of high potential earnings. So many of the students want to be rich and have a lot of money, and they think if they go to business school, it's going to basically teach them how to be rich people. But also unsurprising but sad is that the curriculum does not cover any socioeconomic as well as environmental, ethical, sustainability challenges or questions. And this is important because, as one professor said, Professor Ian Thompson, that accounting, as was established, was to really emphasize the idea of accounting and being accountable. So basically, there's no purpose in then teaching students accounting without teaching them accountability. So we must be able to then center accountability into the curriculum. And to account is that we must account to the public, we must account to the society, we must account to the environment, and be able to say that we are not only responsive to the challenges that we have today and of those of the future, but we're also responsive and responsible. So that's basically some of the things that we found, that basically, and some of the students, for instance, have got anxieties about the changing world of work and whether accounting will still be applicable as a profession to them, or most of their work will be automated by artificial intelligence and the new systems and technologies that are coming into play. But I think the most surprising thing is that many accounting students don't think they've got the power to change their curriculum, and that is sad. I think we need to rethink accountancy as the broader conversation about rethinking the entire education system. And rethinking accountancy merely falls into how we need to change our teaching and learning as well as our research. So I think that we fundamentally have to change the entire education system to look into how we prepare students for the real world of work, and basically responding to humanities needs as well as environmental needs. As it stands, the education system does not in any way prepare students to be critical, to be responsive to the real challenges of the global economy as well as the social and well as environmental challenges. It's almost like working with an education system that is outdated. A lot of the case studies that you perhaps find in the textbooks do not teach students to be human, but it just focuses on the very critical, or on the very technical ways of teaching students as though we're training machines, but not humans who live among societies, who live among families, and who work within a certain environment. Also, just to how we assess students, what are we trying to find from students? The way we've been assessing for the past so many years has been go memorize, cram, come and regurgitate, and we'll think you're good. And this is why you often find that people that come out of universities still need to go through professional development just so to be able to be agile in the world of work. So there's just been so many things that have been wrong with the entire education system, and accounting has not been spared of those challenges of the education. Particularly, maybe accounting is even worse, given the socio and environmental responsibility that the discipline or the profession has, in the sense that it supports the economic structure of the day. And as we know today that a lot of economies are financialized, and there's a lot of dominance of the big four companies all around the world working on very critical things such as management accounting. So almost all the firms have got to go through some management accounting and auditing and tax. And these have serious welfare implications for the people. But the teaching and learning processes do not touch into those things to make sure that this curriculum, as well as the graduates that come out of these programs, are very much well responsive to these challenges that the global economy experiences today. So that's why it's important for us to rethink accountancy and to rethink the entire education system. That is probably not the simplest question to answer, but I think Rethinking Accountancy, partnering up with University College London, will actually be embarking on a workshop in September this year, where we'll basically be looking at what we can change in the curriculum. I think that's one thing. But another thing is that the survey that we conducted assisted us to sort of devise a set of demands. And the set of demands, by the way, have been widely published in critical accounting research. And therefore, we basically are calling for the inclusion of these things into the curriculum. And this is basically critical accounting, and this basically involves the co-creation of new ideas, but also the questioning of the current accounting principles, and being able to co-create alternative accounting methods that will be able to uncover many things that ordinary standards of accounting and formulas and methods would not. Things such as then uncovering late payments, corruption, fraud, are not easily detected. And if we are going to begin to have a critical mind when we are teaching students, we are likely to be able to advise students that there's many ways to look into these things, and they need to be critical in approaching the methods of accounting. The second thing that the survey and the conversations we've been having this year has been able to help us to then say that we demand a sustainable accounting curriculum. And this is again very much found in the sustainability accounting research, and we need to find that entrenched in or centered in the undergrad curriculum, where we are able to say that when students are being taught about financial reporting, for instance, they know that you're not only reporting on the financial accounts, the money itself, profit or loss, or the balance sheet of the company or the income statement of the company, but also you go on to report on the impact, the social as well as the environmental impact of that company. For instance, if you are talking about a car manufacturing company, what impact does it have in terms of carbon emissions? What impact does it have on climate change? Do they actually factor that into their financial statements as whether part of their costs, to make sure that they invest into their communities due to pollution that they may be extracting when they are manufacturing the cars, but particularly also measuring the carbon emission of their cars that they are producing. So those things like that, to be able to be sure that we are going to create sustainable environments and mitigate some of the challenges of climate change. Another very important element that we've been able to come to is accountability. So a lot of the accounting and the big four firms have been evading all accountability, and they've set up departments for tax evasion, and they've been releasing dubious reports, and they've not been accountable to anyone. And companies have failed, and shareholders have failed, and the environment has suffered, and the communities have suffered. And we want to now say that accounting students must be taught what it is to be accountable, and how do you measure accountability, and how firms must report on accountability to make sure that they are held accountable for their actions, but also not have the what you would call ethical dilemma that they normally have between consulting, auditing, and management accounting. And that's important, so students understand the roles that they as professionals will have to play in holding the companies they either auditing or consulting for or managing for. And that brings us to the fourth thing that we are calling for, which is centering broader ethics into the undergraduate curriculum. Again, that is important because people need to understand ethical values from their faiths, religious, and cultural perspectives. And again, this is not done in the current paradigm of teaching, because we don't teach accounting as though we're teaching people. We teach it as though we're teaching machines. But if we begin to look at people as who they are, factoring their cultural background, their race, their gender, their sexuality, and the communities in which they come from, and their faith and religion, we are able to take all of that, which makes them to formulate ethical values. Certain people know that they cannot do certain things culturally or religiously, but you find a situation here where priests and stuff like that are part of tax evaders, or avoidance, and that is some of the problems. But the research does capture how we can sometimes teach students to be more ethical. Of course, this does not mean when we teach you to be more ethical, you'll be able to do so. Another element I think I want to mention here in this, that there is also a direct link between our unethical conduct and the socio-economic impact. And again, there's been a lot of research there. For instance, tax avoidance of the big multinationals has severely negatively impacted women and children in low-income countries, because those companies, for instance, let's say they are producing cool drinks and they come and they degrade some environment. They're putting in their firms and their waste and stuff like that, and children don't have access to clean water, and children are unable to go to school, and these companies do not pay tax, which is meant to plow back into those communities, to take children to school, to help children have access to clean water and sanitation and other socio-economic rights. So there is often direct impacts between our unethical conduct as far as we deal with financials and the impact that it has on the people's well-being and social welfare. And what is probably more popular now, which is the fifth thing that we're calling for, is ideas, basically inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And this has been, again, a big problem, I think, of the entire global economy, where there is less representation of certain groups in the economic sector. And we are calling for more representation, and we say that representation is not only a matter of number, but representation does assist the creation of ideas, the production of new knowledge, and propelling economies to develop in a way that sustains humanity as well as the environment. So you are not sort of like, by including women, thinking that maybe you are just doing it as a tick box, but there's a greater value in terms of knowledge contribution, in terms of skills contribution, in terms of ideas that can come, perspective and impact that you can sort of benefit from as a company or as a government or as a community, from making sure that you are intentional about inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And this all is to make sure that we are sustainable in terms of our socio-economic structures, but also as our environmental impact. I think a lot of people need to support this as a very important cause to rethink our education system, but also to rethink the accountancy. So we've got a website where people can basically go read up on all of our stuff, including the surveys that we've conducted and the reports that we have. But most importantly, we would like people to go into our website. There's a link to our manifesto. Please sign up and follow us on our social media pages. But you can also donate to the cause, so that we are able to continue the project and continue the campaign at different universities around the UK and hopefully around the world. So people can also donate, but also people can just support the campaign by signing up our manifesto, which you can find on our website as well as our social media pages.